think this live should be a really good start because I would love to hear more about, yeah, just how you approach, um, just like
Sure.
making content, being a creator, being a progressive man in 2025. But yeah, so we met at the White House Correspondents' Dinner weekend. It was late. It was like probably 1 or 2 a.m.
Oh
So this is
yeah,
why
that's the
you have
problem.
every, you do not worry. And I was asking, creators, about what they thought about the White House Correspondents' Dinner and just like journalism and sort of the state of journalism and the fact that there are so many
Oh,
creators who are now filling in that role, and that a lot more people have trust in creators. Double tap if you do, are following creators and trust them to deliver the news in 2025 when a lot of the media is, I don't know, just like not always the most
facts.
trustworthy, and by the way, it is being defunded, right? There's like, it's not like, oh, media's
It's being
bad.
co-opted too, on top of everything
Exactly,
else.
exactly. We could talk about that, but yeah. And then you were like, "Well, you were so cool. You were so nice. You were
I appreciate that.
amazing." And you were like, creators, we speak from the heart. Like journalists read a script, and we speak from the heart. You were so sweet. So you're a really good drunk. I don't even think you were really drunk, but you had definitely had a
I
few drinks.
definitely what correct that night. So here's an interesting story about that night. First of all, I lost my cowboy hat, which really hurt my feelings. But
I'm sorry. Oh, that
I
sucks.
left it in the Uber on the way back to the hotel. But
Oh, so someone
I
has had a really good night because they
correct.
found your cowboy hat.
Yeah. So I was at the pre that dinner you're talking, or that soiree, whatever you want to call it, that we were at.
Yeah,
The one before that I was at was ran by Substack here. You may have been
yeah,
there too. I didn't.
yeah.
And they didn't have a beer that I would drink because I'm picky about
Oh.
my beer. I was like,
Mm.
fine, just give me an old fashioned. The problem is that turned into three old fashions, and then over to the after party that turned into three more old fashions. So yeah, about six old fashions deep was that
That'll do
conversation.
it. That'll do it. Wait, what's your go-to beer? Shout out.
Modelo.
Ooh, they didn't have
I love
Modelo?
no, and it
That's
hurt my
random.
feelings.
I
They
get
didn't have
that.
Modelo, and then my backup, which is totally like off spectrum of Modelo, is Michelob Ultra, but they didn't
Ooh,
have that either. So
boo. I'm sorry. And then you had to drink six old fashions. It's hard.
my
It's you just that's not that was
arm
you're
was
the victim
twisted.
here. But I just love you. I think you're so great. I think
I
you're
appreciate that.
able to reach, like, well, first of all, I would be I'm very curious. I know a lot of people who follow us are worried about the same thing, and it's always, I feel like it's always in the news, but I think especially now we have people like David Hogg, and
Mm,
other sort of, progressive people going out and really sort of stating the problem that we just really have a white man problem, with the progressive movement. So yeah, where do you, I mean, you're sort of at the intersection of all of this. What is your diagnosis of the situation at this point?
so first, let me give you your flowers back. I also think that you're a badass. I'm well aware of your work. I'm well aware of your
Yeah.
podcast. I'm well aware of the
Mhm.
viral clips where you basically spoke truth to power, and it was nice to see because I'm not gonna lie, when I see any white person speaking on certain issues, I'm gripping my seat and you know
Yeah, 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 yeah.
waiting to see, and you nail it every time. So I appreciate that about you. And I'm sure people feel that way about me, and they should. That's how we should. But my thoughts on it is this. In this country, like we're so far into the forest that we've forgotten about the trees.
Yeah.
And we're so far, I guess the way I can say it, we're so far into the result of white supremacy that we have forgotten that white supremacy is the crux of it all. And, this country's never held itself accountable for white supremacy. It's never happened. I
Mm,
can draw a straight line. I've said this 1,000 times. I can draw a straight line from the Confederate States of America to make America great again. I don't need to take any left turns or right turns or any, mental leaps. It's a straight line because we
yeah.
didn't hold the Confederacy accountable. We allowed the United Daughters of the Confederacy to rewrite history, to resurrect statues. We allowed this dangerous rhetoric to continue in the South. We allowed Jim Crow laws after federal troops were pulled out. We allowed the same propaganda to exist into the late 20th century. We allowed the super predator mindset and the war on drugs to just be a continuation of the loophole in the 13th Amendment to incarcerate people and call it incarceration when in fact it's modern day slavery. We've allowed all of this to continue unchecked. And I think it's important to mention that the Republican Party allowed those with that radical mindset to exist within their party. And so when MAGA co-opted their party and took it away from them, I mean, they got what they reaped what they've been sowing all this
Yeah.
time. So I think that to answer your question, I say all that to say this,
Mhm.
to be progressive in 2025 was the question. I think we need to make sure that we don't forget that we can beat MAGA, we can beat Trump, we can beat all this, but if we don't hold white supremacy accountable, finally, then it's just going to repeat itself again.
Yeah, and that's such all of that is a great, retelling of yeah, that I think a lot of people look at where we're at and we're like, "How did we get here?" Right? Like, there's that
That part.
SNL sketch of 2016 election, right? All these white people being or these white characters, right, in the show being like, "What?" And then black people being like, "Yeah, like, we know that this is what you do
Right.
over and over and over and over
Right.
again."
Right.
And so but I think that there's look, like, I'm Canadian, and so and we have our own problems, which is just a version,
Sure.
of what's going on here. Um, and we are also in denial about the history, especially with indigenous people and present day, right, of the killing and disappearing of indigenous women,
Sure.
and I know that there's denial there, that just as part of, I guess it's not human nature. That makes it sound like I'm justifying it, but I think that I'm curious if you think that there's something unique in the American experience, right, that makes it so difficult, or and I have a theory, but I'm curious what it is, for you, that again, if you look like a place like Germany, and the ways that they've made sort of reparations, right, like, and reconciliation, and they really acknowledge right what they did and what happened. And here there's just this, like, I think half of the population wants to do that, and then the other half is sort of dealing with it in a very different way. So I'm curious what your, yeah, like, diagnosis is for that, or analysis.
It's essentially what I just said, and that's
Yeah,
accountability. The difference between
yeah,
us and Germany is Germany held itself accountable.
yeah.
Germany made right its wrongs, right? If I hit you in the kneecap with a baseball bat every day at noon for 100 days, to the point that your leg is no longer able to be used, and then on the 101st day I say, I'm not going to hit you in the leg with a baseball bat anymore, but we're both going to walk this road together and we're equals. No, we're not. I can't walk.
Yeah,
You beat
right.
me in the leg for it. So this is what America did. America literally oppressed and marginalized in the most inhumane, despicable ways ever recorded in human
Mhm,
history. And then one day we'll say, "Oh, we're not going to do that anymore," which they do. They just reworded it and renamed it. But then scream equality. Equality without equity is nothing more than words without actions. We can't
mhm.
we cannot learn from history that we don't teach. You can't have standardized testing in schools when you don't even have standardized resources. You
Yeah.
cannot, you literally cannot have a standard for employment, a standard for what's culturally acceptable, a standard for what is intelligence and beauty. You cannot have standards that are based on whiteness and then wonder why whiteness is the problem. And so
Mm.
until this country divorces itself from the mythology of white supremacy, we are bound to suffer from the consequences of it. And
Yeah, yeah.
so that's the difference between us and Germany and other countries as well, is the lack of accountability of, like you said, how we got here.
Yeah. And how do you find that, like, again, and not to make you like the male whisperer,
No,
against your
of
will,
course not.
but
No.
but why? And by the way, women are, white women are just as, like, brainwashed, and lack accountability too. But yeah, like, how do you find that what you're saying right now, right? Like, this very important message. How do you find that it is the most well received? Like, are there certain things in the way that you create content, and sort of do storytelling, or even in conversations that you have where you're like, oh, when I say it this way, they get it, or when I use this example, they get it.
So it's kind of a threefold answer for me. When I very first got on social media, I didn't do it with the intent of anybody watching a video I put up or even knowing my name. And then the very first video I put up blew up, and then the rest was history. And so I quickly just made more videos with my current state of mind at that time, which
Mhm.
is I'm unapologetically going to tell the truth, and I don't care how it makes you feel. And so that's one approach I've taken for a long time, and I will continue to take that approach because here's the thing: I get white people in my inbox all the time. Hey man, like I felt this way but wasn't sure what to do. Hey man, I felt this way but wasn't sure how to confront my mother, father, uncle, sister, cousin, brother, coworker.
Mhm.
Watching your videos gave me the motivation to do some introspection on myself and confront my people. So good. But
Mhm.
there's this whole other sect of people that's not going to reach. They're going to turn off because it's too much in your face. And what I have found is the best approach with people that are further right on the spectrum to get through to them is show them, hey man, I'm white like you. In fact, I'm
Yeah.
rednecker than you, right? I, I'll throw horseshoes with you. I'll drink beers with you. I play
Yeah.
the hell out of the acoustic guitar. I'm a country music fan.
Mhm.
Like I grew up in the mountains, and I'm a mountain boy at heart. And I have found that when I meet people on an apolitical ground and they really get to know me
Mm.
as everything but my politics and social views, then when that conversation starts, they're more apt to listen.
Yeah.
And the other part of that of too is avoiding the words that in these days have become trigger words.
Yeah.
I found that to be useful. So that's kind of
What
been
are
my
the
approach,
trigger
and it's worth.
words? What are the
Oh,
words?
you say racism, they don't get it. You say
Right.
white supremacy, they're running for the hills.
Mhm.
You say LGBTQI, they run for the hills. But you simply reword those by defining them, and all of a sudden you
Yeah.
say defund the police. They're like, I say,
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
why don't we audit the police? Oh, that's a damn good idea. That's what it means, right? So
Yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah.
it's wording. It's all about wording.
Yeah. Speaking of words, Sal G says adds rednecker to dictionary. I love it. I love it. I love it. But it's also, I think what you're doing is like embodying a resistance to the lies and the propaganda that are, I think the greatest tool, of fascism and
Agreed.
and authoritarianism, which is to paint us as evil, right? And to paint, or again, even we were at a conference recently for progressive creators, and Suzanne Lambert was there, who is an amazing creator. We should all do a thing together. Is like the MAGA
Love
makeup lady,
Suzanne.
so yeah, she
I
laughs
was at
at
that
the way.
conference.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I saw you there. I don't know if we even, right. I
We
met.
might have.
No,
I don't
actually, I
know.
made you do a video. I remember I came up to you and I was, or you don't remember, but I was like twins. Like I was finding
Oh, that
creators
was
that looked like
you.
twins. Yeah.
Oh, I need to see this video. I've been wanting to see the result of the video.
It's
Is it
so
up?
good. No, I'm the worst. I've been
Okay, okay,
traveling
okay,
and I
okay.
haven't edited, but I
No
will post
problem.
it.
I can relate.
I
I
will
can
post it.
relate.
But
Yeah.
if you can believe it, there was another. I mean, there's no other Jolly Good Ginger, but there
There's
was
no.
someone
Come on.
who had your uh,
Listen,
complexion, facial hair.
when you first said we're doing like the doppelganger thing, I was like, is Tizzy here? Where the hell? I didn't see him. Because people always confuse me and Tizzy, and it's crazy.
Wow.
Him and I joke about it, how commonly people confuse us. So
That
I
is
was like,
so
maybe he is
funny.
here. But anyway.
He may be, yeah, or maybe he's watching this live, but I forgot. Oh, so yeah, Suzanne was doing a video um at the conference where she was just doing kind of selfies, video selfies with creators, and she was like, see, like we're not all blue haired, like whatever, right?
Right.
Like this sort of
Right.
I think a really powerful lie, right? That's been used, I think, and I think is really works on men specifically, and on women, but it's just like, oh, men who are progressive don't get laid, are ugly,
Correct.
are, drink soy lattes or whatever, right? and
Not
and and women don't want
masculine.
them.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think that is what you embody so well. Again, like you're just embodying, um by virtue of existing the way that you are, and just sort of existing in the world, you're sort of proving that entire stereotype wrong.
Yeah, I made a
um
video like just a few months ago, and I said something to the effect of what you're saying. I said,
yeah.
"Hey, you claim that DEI is, the the problem, I've never been a recipient of DEI, their version of DEI, right?
Right,
Um,
right.
you say that, you got a problem with trans men and you're the gender you're born at. I identify with the gender I was born as. And I went down this long list of things they say they love. I said, you say you support veterans. I'm a veteran. You say that you support pulling yourself up by the bootstraps. I was born in poverty and now I do well for
Mm,
myself. I just went through this long list. So I said at
mhm,
the end of my long list, I am your American dream. So why do you hate
mm,
me? And then I showed all the DMs I get from them and the comments they leave me. I was like, so I'm your American dream. Why do you hate me? It's time that we put aside
yeah,
these myths and just
yeah,
recognize you simply don't like your privilege being challenged. You don't like the white supremacy being questioned. People want a free pass on that shit. Now, I'm a good
yeah.
person, though. I'm sure you are, but until you recognize and deconstruct from white supremacy, we're fucked. Quite
Yeah.
frankly.
And is there like that kind of internal work also is a like is kind of a, again, not to like like use all these fucking terms, but like I do
Mhm.
think it's a, and I feel this way with work around gender and masculinity, like, talking about the words that you try not to use. I feel like I can't, the word masculinity, I had to realize was a term that, I was having wrote a book called For the Love of Men, and I, whatever, I had this friend that was like a bartender, um and he was like, "Oh, like, yeah, I'll buy it." Like, and he started reading it and he was like, or I told him about the book and he was like, "What's masculinity?" He
Mm,
just, he was like, "What does that mean?" Like, and
mm,
that's when I was just like, "Oh, wow, like I have to really think through what language I'm using."
sure.
And to your point, not just that I'm turning people off, right? Or, that a person who might be open to the message will keep scrolling if they hear the word patriarchy or masculinity or whatever, he'll be like, "Oh, she's, part of this demonized group that, or a group that's been demonized by,
Right.
other by the people that they are listening to." But I also think it's like, it's also, is this accessible, it's kind of a class issue too, right? If we're only
Yes.
using terms that, again, like white supremacy, which takes, you're not born knowing what that means, and that's not necessarily as a result of you being, bigoted or lazy, or right, but you not having, sort of,
It's the
like you were
result
talking
of your
about,
privilege. Right.
literally,
Yes.
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 So yeah, do
Uh,
you think about those things too,
yes,
when
I do.
you're making content? Yeah.
100%. I mean, everything I'm doing, I'm trying to think about because again, and probably like yourself too. I don't know like where you guys started, but like it's probably similar. Every creator I talk to, it's a similar story. None of us ever expected to have this platform, and now here we are.
Yeah.
And so I never expected to have a platform, but 5 years later, I still have one. I'm still doing it. So I am constantly trying to improve my own messaging because because I got into this thing to make a difference, and that's still why I'm here. And to whom much is given, much is expected. So I want to maximize the use of my platform, and
Yeah.
one of the big ways I do that is precisely what you're talking about, which is like, is this messaging working? What's the effects of this? Am I just throwing red meat to the far
Right.
left progressives that agree with me and we're just all having an echo chamber party, or am I affecting change? Like, I will give you
Hmm.
an example. As of recent, I have been able to really position myself on Capitol Hill, amongst many of the Congress members, both Senate and House alike.
Yeah.
And I've done a lot of interviews with them, and all their Digicom directors know me now. They hit me up for stuff. I'm on the Hill all the time. I just started a new series called Under the Influence, where I sit and have a beer with the Congress member and we talk. And
Oh, that's so cool. I love
yeah,
that.
and so and I've been able to position myself there to do that thing through the work to get there and gaining the access and constantly making content. And so then once I got there, I had to sit with myself and say, what do I do now? Right? Because it's
Yeah.
easy, in my opinion, to walk into Congress with a carton of eggs, proverbial eggs, and hey, you know what I mean? And the
Yeah.
the one thing we don't like about this senator, I throw an egg in his face, and this, or do I cater a relationship, build a relationship, interview him a few times, and then start being able to actually have some effectual change in their thought patterns to
Yeah.
where, and I've had several Congress members say, I saw your video said this, I saw your video you posted this, and they asked me about it, and then like I'm like, wow, I'm actually starting to like affect how they're making decisions and how
Mm,
they're casting votes and how they're making decisions inside the party. This is what I want to do. This is
yeah.
much more effective than walking in with a carton of eggs and because that gives me one-time access, an egg in your face, all the likes and shares on the internet, zero
Mhm.
change, zero usefulness, and I'll never be
Mhm.
back in. So
Mm.
to that effect, I want to do the same thing with just the standard, social media user who happen across my content. I want to be able to use language and approaches
Yeah.
that will, because the far right has that pipeline.
Oh,
You know
yeah.
what I
I
mean? That's what I
mean,
like about your work. I
yeah.
love about your work that you talk about men and dating and masculinity because that's what we need. We need this apolitical conversation of that draws people into
Yeah.
that conversation, and then let me feed you over to the left a little bit rather than the right. And we don't
Yeah.
have that.
Right. What are those like points of entry you think again, and we don't have to talk about men specifically, but I think that's what
Right.
we're all like worried about. Not all, but specifically, I think is a it feels very like unsolvable. Even though I do think it's a very solvable. I think all problems are very solvable, but I think the masculinity thing right now, like every time you see any research or poll about it, it feels like worse
Yeah.
than sort of even what we sort of thought. So yeah, are there points of entry that you find are good for men to come across and then that they can sort of take an off ramp from
Yeah.
far
I,
right?
I I was just on a podcast a couple days ago, and I said then what I'm going to say now because I think it's pertinent to the conversation. I think that the far right, the talking points are so emotionally bound, and
Yeah,
they require no reading of books or understanding of
right.
anything. Their
And
emotion.
understanding of yourself, by the way, right?
Right,
It's you're
right.
right. Yeah.
Because they'll say things like, you're going through a breakup, and that's because women don't appreciate men like you. So now that
Mhm.
requires no work. That's just a little self-esteem boost. And then
Mhm.
you're like, yeah, you're right. I tried to give her everything because obviously we always see the good things we do. I tried to give her everything. I was this and I was that and I was amazing and she didn't want me. And you're right. Now, what else do you got to say? Okay, since you're here, alpha male. Okay, cool. Now take this red pill. Boom, Donald Trump, man. So that's what
Yeah.
happened like that, right? So I think that the entry point is the same for both the left and right pipeline, but we need to talk to men on that level. And I say as a man who wants to talk to men on the level of, hey, let's address society, but do it differently than why they're doing it and try to push them down this other pipeline. Like, I don't know. I've been wanting really strongly to make other platforms that don't have my political content on it to try to draw men in. I ride motorcycles. I'm a big motorcycle rider. I love motorcycles. As soon as the stream's over, I'm going downstairs and I'm getting on my Harley and I'm riding across town. I shoot guns really, really well. I'm very good at shooting guns. I go to the range every week. I'm a pool player. I love shooting pool. And so I'm thinking like, what if I did content like this,
Mhm.
but then incorporated just daily life conversations and gained this apolitical audience who are,
Yeah.
hey man, I like this guy. We have some things in common. I like what he's saying. And then microdose the leftism in there.
Microdose, I love
You
it.
know? And I
Because that's
think
what red pill is doing, by the way.
that
It
is
is also
exactly what they're doing.
microdosing. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like Charlie Kirk shows up and Turning Point USA does a party on campus. They don't talk politics. They'll just
Mhm.
leave their flyers around. And
Yeah.
the random college student who doesn't know much about politics, like, oh, Turning Point US threw this party and gave us free beer. That's awesome. I'm gonna go to their website.
Mhm.
Oh, yes, I do hate women, turns out. And so
Right.
like,
Mhm.
it just happened that quick. And so I think we need to do the
Mhm.
same thing.
Wow. I love that. I think you're tapping into something so real. And what I like about what you just said is that it sounds also like easy, right? Like I think when we talk about this crisis, we I don't think we're overcomplicating it. I think we're just trying to solve it. But I think it
Yeah.
feels very big. It feels very impossible. And I think what you just said is so right, right? Like and that's what we tried to do with I was a part of the group that founded Hotties for Harris, and that's what we were
Ooh,
just trying to throw good parties, right? Like,
yeah, right.
and are you hot? Okay, great.
And you
You can
did,
come
by
and
the
party.
way.
Well, it didn't totally work, but we
But
tried
you
our
threw
best.
good
And
parties, Devin.
yeah, but and again, if there are people listening who want to fund really cool parties that lure people into the progressive movement, without them even knowing, let us know. Because I think you're right. I think, and I think, solicited advice, like I think you should totally lean into you as a whole person, right? Like, and almost
Right.
be a full influencer, like, which I don't even know if you want to call yourself that, but like, just talk about all the things that you love doing, and then yeah, drop in obviously your very core, like, ideological and political beliefs into that. But you're interesting, like, and people want to follow you as for who you are. And I think that's, part of what we learned from the election, which was like, again, I hate saying this because it's been so oversaid, but like the Joe
Yeah.
Rogan of the left, like
Right.
like Joe Rogan of the left can't be Pod Save America, because one of the reasons is that they are uniquely about politics. Like, yeah, you see a little bit about their lives, but like they're not creators, right? They're not personalities in the way that, yeah, like people like I think Ben Shapiro, and like, and again, Joe Rogan, right? That 10% of Joe Rogan's content is about politics. 90% of
Correct.
it is about, like,
Correct.
yeah, building up, bulking up,
About
and
conspiracy theories of the
aliens.
world.
Yeah,
You know what I found?
exactly.
Just to like kind of like put a fucking some whipped cream on this conversation. And this is going to sound like braggadocious, and please don't take it that way
Do
because
it.
that's not how I
Do
am.
it.
But for my whole life, if I go in a room, I'm the guy that can work the room. Like I can go in a bar and work the bar. I
Hmm.
mean, I got a fucking, a parlor trick up my sleeve. I used to, back when people smoked in bars, I used to have this trick where I would put ashes on your palm without touching your palm. People would freak out how you do it. I used to literally, if I saw cards anywhere, I would like, give me those cards, like at a house party or something, and I would just grab the whole party, and they would do this trick and blow the party away.
Woo.
That's who I am.
Yeah.
I'm that, social butterfly. And I
Hmm.
think that if somehow people can take that, part of their personality bottled up and translate
Yeah.
it to video and translate it to social media and captivate their attention, because as you mentioned earlier, they have a visualization of what a leftist is in their brain. The
Yeah.
blue-haired, 135-pound frail man who doesn't know what a shovel is and can't go hunting. And that's just not like there's so many leftists and
Yeah. Yeah.
liberals
Yeah.
that doesn't fit that. So we have to break down their idealization of what that is.
Yeah.
And to do so, you got to get to know me and you start realizing, holy shit, this isn't what I thought a leftist was. You know what I'm saying?
Mm,
And the other problem with that is being able to articulate our positions as leftists. Because so the
yeah.
juxtaposition, I said that conservatives just live off of emotions. They appeal to your emotions. No real, you don't got to read a book or have any education. It just
Yep.
that makes sense. I'll run with it. Evidence be damned. To arrive to a leftist position, now, liberals, I'm talking about leftists, real leftists. You got to do, you got to do a lot of work. Got to read a book. You got to do critical analysis. You got to
Yeah.
deconstruct from especially if you're white in America. You're a white supremacist, and you have to be actively anti-racist. You got to put work in to arrive to this position. And so, if you're able to grab somebody into that conversation, you need to be able to articulate that position in a way that they can consume it, absorb it, and understand it because they've put no work in. That's why they're over
Mm,
here. And I
hmm.
think sometimes people on the left, they take the easy way out. Well, I don't have to explain to you
Yeah.
because you're a fucking racist. You're a fucking racist. I'm not explaining to you.
Yeah.
And as a white person, our job is to put the work in and explain it and find a way to explain it, or else we really are just stonewalling any progress. That if any of that makes sense.
I totally agree, and I've been thinking about that recently. I can't remember what the tweet was, but it was like, by the way, I love saying tweet because I know it's the wrong word,
Pisses them
and
off.
I will never say the right word.
I agree with you.
But and actually at the conference we were at, Pete Buttigieg gave this amazing talk, and he also used the word Twitter, and I was like, yes, King, do it, say it
I
wrong.
love Pete. I love
Um,
Pete.
I know he's great. But I lost my train of thought. But yeah, no, it was basically like a little bit what you're saying, like a liberal, semicolon, like I'm not going to teach you, I'm not going to educate you, and then it was like radical, sort of. I don't know if a radical leftist or what the terminology was, but basically like coming from that position is like I want to educate you, right? Like I'm here.
Yes.
Like someone taught me these things, right? I learned and now I can teach you, right?
Yep.
And I tend to think like maybe that's a little bit of a self-regulation issue, which on the internet happens a lot, where people instead of self-regulating, we like use the internet to self-regulate in a really strange way. And I think we also spend a lot of time on the internet when we're not self-regulating. Like, when you're
Mm.
sad or you're upset or that's when you turn on your phone and maybe that's when
Yep.
you're gonna
Doom
do like,
scroll.
yeah,
Yeah.
you're gonna send out a weird comment or feel again.
Hmm.
So when I'm feeling that way, which again comes in waves,
Yep.
even though I wrote a book about having empathy for men, like there are days where I'm like just, yeah, like scorched earth, just based on, yeah, what's going on. I mean, where I'm at in my period, did I eat? Like how many coffees
But
did I
see,
have? Like,
in your defense, though, like, so I will say this: I'm glad. I'm so
yeah.
glad you said that. First of all, I can pause. If you're enjoying the conversation, you're liking live, please tap the heart button at the bottom right.
Yes. And add
So
questions and
the more
so
you tap
jolly.
the heart button, the more this live gets sent out to the featured live
Universe. Yeah.
on Substack. So please tap the heart. It does boost the live. It allows more people to come in and be part of the
Yeah.
conversation. Also, feel free to type in the comments and the little square with the arrow. You can share it with somebody you think needs this conversation. So I'm
Yeah.
so glad you said what you just said. Here's why. I do think it is completely fair for an oppressed community to not have to fucking educate or explain
Yeah.
themselves to the community that oppresses them. So when I say like for example, if you say I fucking don't feel like dealing with men today, dude, that makes sense. Like a woman doesn't have to educate a man, and also like if someone in the black community is like I'm not explaining white
Yeah.
supremacy to you white person, that's completely fucking fair because they don't owe us their labor. And
Hmm.
so when I say what I say, just because if there's people in here that may not know me and my platform, I'm very very openly clear when I talk. I'm talking about white people when it comes to racism and white supremacy, and I'm talking about white men when it comes to talking about the patriarchy. It is
Yeah.
our job. We don't get the privilege to say, "Oh, I'm not explaining this to you." If you're a white man, your job is to explain the white male patriarchy in this country to people who don't understand it. As frustrating as that is, in fact, Liz, the reason I got started on social media was because I got laid off of my job in 2020, like a bunch of other Americans did. I'd
Mhm.
never been laid off before, didn't know what to do with my life. And I found myself arguing with people in a Facebook comment section that I've never done before. I didn't argue on Facebook. And
We all got that. We all had, yeah,
right.
we had
But
an
I was like,
experience.
I want to get through to these motherfuckers somehow. And I
Yeah.
made a video. There was this one comment everybody kept saying over and over and over. So I made a video response to it because I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. I'll just copy and paste the damn link to my video, and then they'll get a
Mm,
response. I put that video on TikTok. I had just learned about TikTok. My video was 1 minute long. TikTok was 1 minute long. I was like, perfect. And that video blew the fuck up.
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
I say that to say this. It was my desire to educate people like me that
Right.
brought me to the platform. And I think that is
Yeah.
our job. Is the education's our job because we got here through education. Now we got to pass education because ignorance is the disease and education is the cure, right? So
Yeah.
that's what we have to do.
Yeah. And I love that you said that because it's also not only like yeah, not only but basically like use your social capital, right? I think in some of these conversations it can feel like check your privilege and like take less space and right, but in these instances it's like take up more space. Like when you're at a table of white people and
Correct.
they make a racist comment, like go off, king, right? Like
Yeah.
take up
Right.
all of the space in that room and invest the social capital that you have in that situation. Because by the way, and I find it really important to talk about this because that's how I feel about men. And I know that that's how people of color feel about me, where it's like people listen to you because you're a man. Like when a man calls out sexism, not only do you not get punished for it or retaliation or gaslit, like people like you more. Like very
I
often they're
just
like,
had a
I'm like,
I just had a video go super duper uber uber viral. You may have seen it because I
yeah,
fucking everybody kept reposting it. And it was
yeah.
me basically going off on this dude about abortion. And
Mm,
I was telling somebody in the comment section, I was like, you know, this argument I just made is not unique to me. This video is viral because I'm a white man saying it.
yeah.
Point blank fucking period.
There
You
we
know what I mean?
go. There we
And so
go.
it's exactly what you're talking about.
There we go. And it's almost weird, right? Like, but at the same time, and again, we can have this conversation, it's sort of like then it's like a meta conversation about is it then yeah, if you're a white creator talking about racism and you're saying things right, like we should be also following and supporting creators of color and
100%.
they 100%. But at the same time, I mean, that's how I feel about, again, about men that talk about feminism. I have had like some, a little bit what you said at the beginning of like, when I see a white person talk about racism, you're just a little like, are you a grifter? Like, and I think, and even though, and I will not name any of the people that I'm talking about when I say this, but like I do think that there are some male creators who talk about feminism in a way that or talk about positive masculinity in a way that I feel uncomfortable with, or I have issues with. I don't feel like they properly credit women, and particularly like Black women who have built the entire
Hmm.
gender theory and academics against men and have had to like risk their lives to do it, don't even get credited in those videos. But at the same time, I have to internally be like, it's good. It's like they're reaching men that I would not be able to reach, right? They're able to in a way help us build the movement that we want to build. And I don't have to, but I do have yeah, like make a point of sort of being able to compartmentalize and think about the impact, right? Which is like my goal. I know it's your goal too, right? Like I'm not in it for, I don't know, whatever, right? Like
Right.
for like
Agreed.
mean comments and like unstable income. Like I like want things to be different, and I'm
Hmm.
really lucky like you to have an amazing audience of people who are willing to listen and willing to support our work, which is incredible. Thank you to everybody who's joining this live right now and hearting the shit out of this. You
Yes.
just asked, and it's like, and it hasn't stopped. I love it.
Yes, I love
But
it.
yeah, like it's complicated, and
No,
and again,
I
like, yeah,
completely agree with you. So I apologize for cutting you off.
no, 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 go
Um,
ahead.
well, the one thing you said is like spot the fuck on. Like I know people where I'm like, I don't know that I like how you're doing it, or maybe. Well, let me caveat with this. Let me say one
Yeah,
thing as a caveat. There are certain people who just this time last year were over there, and now they're over here, and
yeah,
social media has made it where people can get platforms. I do believe that if you haven't done a great level of deconstruction from whatever you're talking about, you should still be listening and not talking. Like especially and the number one fucking people that do this is white people. White people finally recognize at age 36 that racism is real. And now they're on social media fucking leading the fucking charge on education about racism. Bro, sit down. But those people aside, there are people who I might not 100% agree with all of their views
yeah,
or how they're doing things, but I'm very much like you. I'm in this motherfucker for change, for impact. And if we're all pointing our weapons in the right direction, but I don't necessarily like how you squeeze the trigger. It's okay. At least it's pointing in the right direction.
yeah.
I'm not here for TikTok drama or Instagram drama.
Hmm.
I'm not here to. I don't want to call people out. It's not how I get down. I just want to defeat
Same,
white
yeah.
supremacy. Like in my world, in my head, there's this weird world where we win and I can just log off social media and never make a video again.
Me too.
But like that's how I view it. That's how
I know,
I
I
view it.
really dream of it.
I know. Because like you said, who the fuck's here for the mean comments and unstable income, right? Like it's so fucking true.
But I
It's
love
so
that.
true.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And yeah, dreaming. Do you identify as an influencer?
As much as it pains my soulless body, I do these days identify as such. I didn't want to. I have a shirt that I wear a lot. It says literally says not an influencer. That's what it says on it. And I wore it to the Trending Up conference day one, matter of fact.
I
And
think I saw you. Yeah.
and I just like I hate the word. but that's where we
Mm,
are. Like we are in
mhm.
that position, and so I'd rather just embrace like where my platform is and where I'm at and find ways to use it to be effective and change. 'Cause that's really all I
Yeah.
care about. There
Yeah,
are
yeah, yeah.
people, let's admit it, let's me and you as influencers admit that there's plenty of people who get in this for the right reasons. They get corrupted by the platform, get corrupted by
Yeah.
the income or the social capital, and they lose their way. And my
Mhm.
sole focus is to stay humble and remember why I got in here, remember my why, because that's what keeps me focused and keeps me grounded and not be corrupted by the social capital of it all, not be
Yeah.
corrupted by every time you walk out the front door. Hey, you're the guy from Instagram,
Mhm,
TikTok,
mhm.
gonna get a selfie. And it's easy to let that shit go to your head. And I make it a point not to. I keep myself
Yeah.
grounded as possible because that's why I got here. And that's what I want to stay true to.
Yeah. Yeah, and I loved your point about, feeling like, yes, you're interviewing Democrats and spending time with them, but not just seeing it as something that you're going to get something out of for you, but something that you can, again, you're an action. If you're an influencer, you're not just influencing people who are, following your page, but you're influencing politicians, you're influencing
Yes.
policymakers, you're influencing culture. And by the way, all of the people who are listening right now and who follow you are also influencers because they're part of your community, right? Like
Bingo.
when you leave an amazing comment, when you like I am shaped by all of you. And I feel 100% like this isn't a one way. Like I don't see it as like I'm on a stage and I'm talking. I see it as like a conversation we have every day. And so I learned so much from you and I incorporate it in everything that I do.
That
And
part.
so that's going to the policymakers, right? So I hope everyone feels um that level of like I don't know, is it empowerment or like just realizing like the effect that you're having,
Yeah, and
that
people trust you too. Like,
yeah.
I did a video with who was it? One of the senators. I apologize, but it got
Yeah,
like
yeah.
2 million views, and they
It
realized, oh
could.
shit,
Yeah.
like 2 million people, and so the community is what makes that possible. Like, if 2 million people don't watch that video,
Yeah,
then I don't get the access and influence that I have based on that video. And
literally.
also think about the number of people that take your video or my video or somebody's video and put it in their Facebook group or
Yeah.
their private
Mhm.
group chats and it's the spreading of the message that makes the shit powerful. But
Totally.
otherwise, we're just screaming into a void, you
Oh
know?
my god, we're, like, talking to our phones, like, alone.
Yeah,
Like, I'm literally alone all the
I say
I'm
that all
like
the
just
time.
in my room. Like,
Yeah.
it's so true. Like we are so grateful for all of you. And even PJ said, I love these live streams. It feels like I'm involved. And like you are involved. Like
Yes,
it's so yeah. And I think we really do our work in the same way where like I take my cues from you, like, and yeah, I could never like do the things that I'm doing. Like or whatever. It's I don't even see it as a thing that I'm doing. I'm constantly seeing it as a thing that we're doing together. And I
yes, agreed.
feel better. I feel better about what we're like the work because I'm doing it with all of you, and it doesn't feel like we're all alone and
Mhm.
we all have to call our senators from our own like, it's we're yeah, creating something. And to me that's been like what I've been waiting or like what I want these live streams to be like a place, it's like a hangout as opposed to I don't know, like work, right? Like activism is supposed to be fun. Like we're actually supposed to have a good time. And I'm having a good time.
Well, my whole thing too is like when you say influencer, influencing people to take action is a big deal. Like,
Yeah.
I guess like there was a point where I felt like maybe people are watching my videos and listening to what I'm saying, but am I giving them a call to action? And so I really, like about 4 years ago, made it a really big part of my platform that I'm no longer just going to talk on an issue if we don't have a goal in mind of doing something, going in
Mhm.
some direction, even if that action is, hey, just talk about this amongst your fucking own people. Hey,
Yeah.
just, share this video or hey, make your own video about it. Don't gotta credit me, fuck crediting me. Just spread this message and
Yeah.
that's the call to action. And I think what we're seeing more of now, finally, uh, is social media platforms translating into action. We're seeing more people getting their news from social media, the new media. Um,
Mm,
we're seeing more access for content creators, like
yeah.
in the Senate and House. And
Yeah.
so I think all of that is inspiring action. And I think that's the
Mm,
most important part of the whole fucking thing. Because if we all get together on these live streams and everything else, but then leave these live streams and do nothing and take no
mm,
action, then it really is it's pointless. I mean, building a
yeah.
community involves action. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's the only thing that's ever changed the world. It's like literally that, right? Like, and again, I talk about this. I feel like every live, but just we have less, or we're meeting up in in physical spaces less and less, and I think yeah, like we should be using these digital spaces, to create real change in the real world. And I really like it is 100% happening. Like, and we can speak to this because, and I think you've been even more embedded in it of like there are now real changes happening in the Democratic Party as a
Hmm.
result of all of you joining these lives, joining these communities, sharing these videos. Like I met someone at this conference that we were both at that just like a job that didn't exist a month ago now exists, that is a person that connects creators with democratic officials, right, that
Yep.
is interested in building those relationships and having these messages reach young people and reach young men in a way that we know Republicans are really good at. And so
Yep.
yeah, like you are literally, again, if you feel bad today or feel like you haven't done enough, like just by being part of these communities, like you're really oh my god, you are doing so much and it is making a difference.
And I'll say this too on the community aspect of it. So 2 weeks ago, I was doing my first episode of Under the Influence with
Yeah.
Congresswoman Sarah Jacobs, who I love,
Nice.
and she, I did not know, has a master's degree in international conflict resolution,
Yeah.
and she dropped a absolute pearl of wisdom during the last stream that I'm going to share with you now. So
Yeah.
I've been saying for a while, we got to build a community. We got to build a community. Well, she told me during this last stream that she didn't plan on going into politics, wasn't planning on running for Congress. Prior to that, she was working with the State Department and different nonprofits doing international conflict resolution, which is where her master's is in.
Mhm.
And part of what she did, a big part of what she did was helping rebuild countries after what's called a democratic collapse. And she said that, that's what we're in right now. When she said that, I was like, oh
Totally.
shit, we're in a democratic collapse right now. And she said, buy the book. Like the right answer was what we know from studying, um, this in other countries and other democratic collapses. What we know to be factual and qualitative and quantitative is that the number one thing that a society can do after a democratic collapse is first build a community. I was like, damn, like that's not the answer.
Yeah.
That's not where I thought she was going with this. But she's
Wow.
like, she was saying we have to build community because we have to coalesce around each other and the things that we find in common, and because it's a democratic collapse and democratic society requires our voices, and so we have to create a community. And so I think it's important that we do that. I think that the one thing we have right now is social media. Congresswoman Jacobs also pointed out that when 1 million people marched on Washington in the 1960s, it was incredibly powerful and a lot of change come from that. But then we see 1 million people marching Washington now, and you wonder why we don't see the same change. She made a very good point.
Mm.
Back then, to get 1 million people in Washington, there was so much groundwork that happened prior. You had
Right.
community meetings, town hall meetings, you had activists
Mm.
on the street, you had conversations happening at unions, you had a bunch of groundwork that
Mm.
was enough to get people to trust 1 million of them to go to Washington. So the Million Man March was, as they called it, was the conclusion of a lot of work. Whereas
Mm.
now we can make a video, be in Washington on June whatever, and people will be there.
Yeah.
But what work went into being there? None.
Uh-huh.
And then
Wow.
after the event's over, what work are we doing afterwards? So that's the point she
Yeah.
was making: is build community, and then from that community take action. And I think that's the most important thing we can do.
I am so inspired. Oh my god. Anyone else? I'm like, I feel like I have chills every subtag line, but like this one, I'm like happy chills. Like
Yeah,
that
when
is
she said that, I was
so true. Mind blown. And again, like I love that because it is such a fun thing to do, right? It's not like, how do we fight fascism? It's like, oh my God, this is like, I don't know about you, but I wait, it's depressing, right? It's like, oh my God, we're gonna have to, and it's like, no, like community. Like it can be like, let's go out more, let's hang
Let's
out
just do
more.
shit. Yes.
Yes, let's like
Yes.
get dinner.
Right.
I love that. I think that's so positive. And yeah, such a great message to end this on. Wait, before we go though, I'm sorry if I'm bringing it down, but I feel like you'll have a great answer because I've been thinking about what you were thinking about all this. What do you think about all of the people who are about the plantation burning down and all of these people who are like upset about people celebrating it?
I think that it's awesome the plantation burnt down. I don't give a shit. Did you see the video? I don't know. So this will
Yeah.
help you understand my answer. You saw the video of the lady that was doing the tour at that plantation. Did you see that?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
If
So,
you haven't seen it, or
oh,
she's basically saying slavery was great. It
yeah.
was
She
so
was
so
like,
kind.
well, we bought our slaves houses and let them live together as families. And when we bought slaves, we bought
Yep,
their families together. And it's
because we
just
care.
like, first of all, you didn't buy slaves, you bought people and then enslaved them. Okay.
Yeah,
Second of
yeah.
all, no matter how you dress up robbing people of their freedom, you rob people of their freedom. And so it's disgusting. And you know what? This I actually you asking that question was almost, did you script this? Because that brings us full circle back to the very fucking first thing I said on this live stream. The lack of accountability in America for what white supremacy, the lack of reparations, the lack of equitable decision making is literally defined by goddamn plantations you can go get married on. How fucking
Hmm.
disgusting. Plantations that we give you tours like the one she was given, where we tell you how, yeah, people were enslaved here, but look how pretty the houses were. Like, this
Yeah.
is literally glorifying antebellum America as if it's something we should reminisce or romanticize on, versus holding to account that the reason this country broke from the United Kingdom, from England, and then quickly became a rich country was on the backs of enslaved people. The economic portfolio of America includes nothing but cheap and free labor. There's a reason that in 2025 we still have an exception in the 13th Amendment. Why hasn't that language ever been changed? There's a reason that there's a Voting Rights Act in 1865, a Voting Rights Act in 1965, the John R. Lewis Voting Rights Act in 2020. Why do I need a Voting Rights Act every 40 years if people that aren't
Mhm.
white already have voting rights? Because they don't. As Malcolm X very clearly said, if the Constitution was meant for anybody other than white people, then only non-white people wouldn't need amendments. And so,
Mm,
you know, the point is, this country, the backbone of this country, the foundation of this country is white supremacy, chattel slavery, the constant mythology of white supremacy, and the practices and procedures that upheld it. And so, watching a plantation burn, really, like, the only my only regret is not seeing it in person, because this America doesn't want to fucking hold ourselves accountable, and they want to romanticize that shit. All they deserve to do is burn if you don't want to fucking take accountability of it.
100%. 100%. It'd be like having weddings at concentration camps. Like, I don't,
Same shit.
any other country, they would be like, absolutely not. Um, I love the way that you are calling out everything that needs to be called out. I love the way you do it.
Thank you.
I feel great after this live. I feel like we have an army of people who are ready to fight and have fun doing it. I want you to teach me how to shoot a gun.
Shit, I'm down.
Maybe that'll be our next live.
Yeah,
Just something
we'll
I'm
do
like,
it live from the gun range. I took
not under the influence. Yeah.
not under the influence. I took a couple people, Walter Masterson, you know Walter?
Oh, of course.
I took Walter and another creator out to a gun range here about 2 months ago, taught them how to shoot, and they loved it.
Oh my
But
God.
we,
No,
we
I
should do
need
more of
to.
that.
Let's
Yeah.
fucking let's
Let's
fucking
go.
go. Let's
Let's
fucking
fucking
go.
go.
Okay,
I'm
we'll
in.
do that. We'll bring you with us and everywhere else we go. We love you, all of you. Thank you for being here and making this live so fun. Thank you, Jolly Good
Liz, thank you for having
Ginger.
me. I love your work. I love who you are as a person and what you do. And I hope we stay
Thank
in
you.
contact and do this more often.
Yes, let's do it again. This was so fun. Have a
It
great
was.
beginning of your week, everyone. Fight the power. Bye.